You ever get that feeling that the lessons of the past are somehow still playing out in your own life? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really personal reflection on how the ghost of an economic crash, one from nearly a century ago, still shapes our anxieties about money, about success, and, where we even fit in this world.
So let's start with a moment that basically defined a generation, the Great Depression. The way our source describes it, this wasn't just some historical event. No, it was profoundly human. A time of these incredible highs, all fueled by credit, followed by this sudden catastrophic fall. And here's what's so fascinating. This isn't some one-time story. The source points out this recurring, almost predictable pattern. It's a cycle of boom, then bust, and then the crushing debt that's left behind when the music stops.
And it breaks down into 4 pretty simple steps. First, confidence is high, so people invest heavily, a lot of it on credit. Second, all that money fuels a soaring market. Everything's going up. Third, something shifts and the whole thing just comes crashing down. And finally, the devastating result, people are left, as the source puts it, knee-high in debt.
And this is the crucial point. This wasn't just about numbers on a stock ticker. For millions of people, it was a deeply personal crisis. It meant defaulting on loans, losing the very homes they'd built, and having to give away their possessions just to get by.
Okay, so let's talk about the trauma of all this. An experience like that, it doesn't just fade away when the economy gets better. No way. It leaves behind this emotional scar, a kind of collective trauma that is echoed right through the generations.
For those who actually lived through it, that fear of losing everything, of that instability just coming back out of nowhere, well, it became a deeply ingrained part of their worldview. They basically resolved to do everything in their power to stop it from ever happening again.
And this is how we know that fear isn't just ancient history. For so many of us, that feeling of the floor just dropping out from underneath you is a very real, very recent memory from the 2008 financial crisis.
The speaker in our source connects this historical trauma directly to his own life. He remembers that feeling perfectly. Everything seems fine one moment, and then suddenly that stability is just gone. His hours are cut, and the struggle begins.
So the shared experience of anxiety, it builds into something more. It creates this powerful sense of a deep, almost unbridgeable divide, socially and economically. A feeling of 2 different worlds.
And he makes this really stark, unapologetic declaration of where he feels he stands. And this isn't him saying he's a failure, not at all. It's just a clear-eyed look at his reality within the whole economic hierarchy. He knows where he is, and he identifies with the struggle.
So this creates this really powerful distinction between 2 groups. On one side, you have the ultra-wealthy, your Musks, your Bezos, CEOs, Hollywood, people whose lives feel completely unrelatable. And then on the other side, you have the people he does resonate with, the ones who are worried day to day, struggling with bills, and stuck in debt.
In this quote right here, it captures such a raw, visceral reaction. It's a complete rejection of that mainstream self-help narrative that tells us we should admire and try to be like the wealthy. For the speaker, that whole idea doesn't inspire him. It actually repulses him.
So, if the relentless chase for wealth feels not just impossible but actually alienating, where do you turn to find meaning, to find your purpose? Well, this leads to a pretty profound personal shift. It all starts with this moment of brutal honesty. It's a confrontation with the reality that the traditional path to success, the one glorified in all the books and media, just might not be for him. It's a question I think we've all probably asked ourselves at some point.
And asking himself that hard question leads him on this 3-step journey. First, he just accepts his reality. I'm not them. I can never be like them. Okay. Second, he identifies what actually brings him joy, his passions, like podcasting and writing. And third, he finds his true community. And it's not with the aspirational rich, but with other people who share his struggles.
So ultimately, the entire definition of success just shifts. The goal is no longer about getting rich or just accumulating wealth. It becomes this desire for connection, for community, and for the chance to maybe help someone else along their journey. Sure, money's important, but it's not everything.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. In a culture that so often equates our net worth with our self-worth, this whole personal journey forces us to ask ourselves, if it's not in money, then where do we find our own true value?